The mayor of Printers Row was found dead in his own establishment.
Printer's Alley.
So let's start over. Did they ever call it Printers Row?
No.
Maybe this is the opening.
Music Row.
Yeah.
Printers Alley.
It is a little confusing because we're Murder on Music Row, and it's not technically on
That's
Music Row this
true.
year. So that's the problem.
Right.
In 1998, the mayor of Printers Alley was found dead in his own establishment. Who is Skull? I can't be serious
That
enough
is
to
the
ask.
best question
Yeah.
you could have asked.
Who is Skull?
You know, the first word that comes to my mind is outlaw. Skull was an outlaw. I think Skull kind of embodied what everyone in Nashville was trying to be. He was running from the cops. He was a guy who oversaw illegal activity all day, all night. He ran a strip club with gambling and drinking when those activities were frowned upon. And he was happy to do it. I think he loved being Skull. He loved having the venue that attracted pretty girls, down and out country western stars, Hollywood people. He loved after-hours parties, and he just kept it going for 50 years. He was a grinder, is who Skull was.
Sounds like a Nashville Gatsby.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a great. I think my perfect one-word description would be character, which everyone says, "Oh, they were a character." No. Skull Schulman was the ultimate character. of
Redefined
characters.
character.
Right? Yeah. I mean, he was all over the place, and he was uncouth at times. He was really funny. He was a quiet thinker. He was a very social man. You know, it's just like he was a little bit of everyone all at once.
We heard he's a curmudgeon.
Yeah.
He was lovable. How are you a lovable curmudgeon? You know, but after all of we've been doing this since last November. Like it was probably before that we knew Skull was going to be the focus of season 2. So as far back as October, even probably of last year, knowing that we were going to do Skull, I feel like I know him. I feel like if he was sitting out in front of his bar right now, I could go sit on his little bench. He used to have a bench in front of Skull's Rainbow Room, and he would sit out there and take people's $1 cover. And he famously carried a wad of cash in his bib overalls in the front, and he would enjoy peeling off the change to show that he was the dude with the money, and you can approach his club if you'd like. But he was the gatekeeper. And I think he was the gatekeeper for what's cool and what's outlaw.
And we're going to get really deep into it, but I probably should introduce who you guys are. So,
Maybe.
Yeah. And I mean,
It's not
people can
important.
read, but Keith, Sharon, and Kirsten, actually, I don't know. How does you say your last name?
Fiscus.
Fiscus. Oh, like the plant.
Yeah. Well, that's a ficus plant.
I get everything sort of similar.
You're fine. People used to call me that all the time, Kristen Ficus, and I'd be like, yes. You know, I answered anything that's close, honestly. But yeah, Kirsten Fiscus.
And you guys have a podcast called I'm about to mess it up.
Murder on Music Row, season 2, The Skull at the End of the Rainbow.
See, it throws me off because my other podcast is called Music Row Hideout. And so I've been turning around in my head, Murder Row Hideout for 3 weeks. So I knew I was going to do it wrong. Later on, I do want to get into season 1. And that one is highly relevant to what I do as a music producer. And it happened a block from here. And I walk by it every day. So I do want to go there. But your new podcast drops. In fact, when this episode's out, it's out now. And so I want to talk about Skull and go into all the depth of that. For the uninitiated, for people not in Nashville or who haven't made it to Printers Alley, what is Skull's Rainbow Room? And can you kind of paint a scene of what that place, maybe what it's like now, or was it different in its heyday? Like, what was the vibe?
The first time we went there was January of this year, and it struck me because it's different. The Skull that I had read about, Skull's Rainbow Room that I had read about, was a seedy joint. You know, strip club, old school. I remember interviewing one of the strippers who worked there back in the day named Dusty Summers. And she told me how dangerous it was. Why would you think it's dangerous to work in a strip club? Well, he had the place floor to ceiling with old newspapers, stacked, because he was a hoarder, and she did a fire act.
Ooh.
So she would do Johnny Cash's Ring of Fire in Skull's Rainbow Room, twirling around flames. And she thought, I'm going to kill everybody in here one of these times because someone's going to catch on fire. She said the dressing rooms were tiny. There's actually, behind the stage, a door that opens up into Printer's Alley, and that's where the dancers take a break. They even did in January when we were there. So I have this picture in my mind of the ultimate, like, dusty, dirty, smoky strip club, and we go there, and it's upscale. It's steak and martini,
Right.
kind of a place that's classy and people dress nice, and it's kind of like an older, quiet crowd. Now you get your there's two kinds of crowds that go there. You get your bachelorette parties, sure, and then you get your ghost tours. And people go there because they've heard the legend that David Schulman walks the grounds because he's unsettled about what happened to him. So tell me if your perceptions are different.
Yeah, I mean, I would have described it back in the 90s when this happened as a dive, right? Like everything is just a little, like all the chairs are just a little over broken in, but that's what makes it comfortable. I'm a millennial, so I love a dive bar, you know?
Yeah.
So that's kind of my scene and my vibe. And then, yeah, I would say today it's definitely, dark woods, and the lighting is romantic, and it's a very different scene, but also like there are pieces of Skull throughout the bar now. And so it still kind of has the flavor that it had then. It has a telephone booth and the old TV that he used to sit and watch, and it's all up there. And then the very first menu is up there, and it's like, wow, you paid
15 cents for a beer or something like that.
I wish we could go back to that day.
Corned beef. Just 30 cents for corned beef.
Yeah, so it wasn't steak.
It was not.
No, absolutely not.
And I think Pabst Blue Ribbon. I think he was famous
it was a PBR
for
bar.
PBR bar. Yeah.
Yeah. Did it used to have the like nice dark wood and everything? Because it looks like it's classic.
It is. Yeah. I think I don't know for sure. I think most of the fixtures are original. The bar is definitely original. So it had the pieces, like it was very clearly back in the 90s, like it was once really opulent, and it has kind of decayed over time. And then when the new owners came in, they really came in and spiffed all of that old stuff up, right? Everyone loves to do like a refresh these days.
Right.
And so that's kind of what happened. So it's all still there.
Bill Miller bought the place. I think he's the second or third owner. When Skull died in 98, it sat empty, I believe, for 17 years. I mean, literally nobody opened the door. And so when the new owners came in 2015, I believe, they opened the door to find pigeons inside and cats and broken beams and all kinds of debris that had not been touched since the day of the attack. And now Bill Miller came in and upgraded it even more. What they've kept, though, the shining mascot of the place is the stage. It's the same checkerboard stage that all the country acts for all time have performed on.
Yeah, I mean, that stage is super cool.
Yeah.
And if somebody wants to go check this place out, it's open now, and you can go, and that stage is so cool, like right out in the middle of everybody.
Right.
But yeah, now it's always like jazz bands and...
It's strangely designed. Like
it is so in the way.
Right. Yeah, the stage is in the way.
But I love that.
Right.
It's like, oops, might bump the singer, Like,
Yeah.
they're like right there with you.
You
Yes.
might knock the stripper's clothes off before she wants to take them off, She
Burlesque dancer.
I'm sorry. There's another we have argued over what are they? Are they exotic dancers? Are they burlesquers? Like, what's the right word?
Well, what did they do back then?
I say
They
stripper.
stripped back then.
Yeah.
They did. I told him, I was like, here's the differences in today's terminology. So I would accurately refer to the women back then as strippers. Today, I would refer to them as burlesque.
Okay, well.
It's different.
More clothes, a little classier, less like objectifying.
Yeah, how would you say?
Okay, so a burlesque performance, I would say, is more of a celebration of a woman's sensuality and sexuality. Don't laugh at me. That's
what's
real.
the difference?
We're millennials, Keith.
Whereas strippers, it's a little more lurid, right? They're doing it for the male gaze.
Okay.
I can tell you went to college.
Yeah, she did.
I did too. I learned about the male gaze in an art class I had because I went to art school.
Yeah.
But yeah, never heard of it before or since. But
It is kind of a buzzword right now.
Now you have.
Well, I think that's a good description. For the record, I've never been to a strip club or a burlesque show. If my wife's listening, but she won't. So anyway,
But you know what? I think it's a good date night. You could take her 11 o'clock on. What you do is you go. We probably went too early because we wanted to. The act there is Diane Sherrill and Perry Danos do a song and dance number, like old fashioned. I tell people there's no time in Skull's Rainbow Room. It could be 1954, 1968, or now. It's kind of lounge singery, and then it leads into the burlesque show, and then you get dinner at your table. So it's a date night, I think.
Yeah.
It's classy enough where, and the performers are as much comedians as they are disrobers.
I listened to the first episode, and one thing that struck me was just how many places you talk about on Printer's Alley that are not there, have never been there in my tenure in Nashville. Like, it sounds like it was a much more happening place. And to your point about the Rainbow Room, it was seedier, it was edgier, it was more outlaw. So now we've got this like refreshed sort of, and it seems like that's what's happened in Nashville. Everything old got bought up and turned like, oh, we're going to make it classier and make it tourist friendly. But it sounded like the Wild West, the way you described it.
One of my favorite interviews. We interviewed Lorraine Mayfield, who you don't know, but she's a huge star in Hollywood. She is David Fincher's casting agent.
Oh.
So she worked on all the great David Fincher movies, and we had her in the studio.
I mean, her exact quote was, Skulls was a shithole. It was fantastic. That's her quote.
Yeah.
And
That's a fantastic shithole.
yeah.
And I absolutely believe that. She would describe like illegal shit going on and all kinds of like characters who this guy was probably in the mob and this guy killed somebody and this guy was a star from Hollywood and this guy, and I loved it. You know, she was so into, she was a cocktail waitress at one of the clubs, and then she would get off work and hang out at Skulls. And just fascinating stories about the I think it was the 80s. I think was her her decade there. And then there was another murder close by where one of the club owners got shot, and she thought,
That's it for me.
I'm out. And she said she never went back. She just thought she had hit the edge and gone. It went a little too far for her.
But referring back to Skull as being a character, Lorraine herself, that's where she said that she kind of found her love of casting, was because she would think back to all these characters that she saw in Printer's Alley during her time there. And she's like, that's the kind of what I want to evoke in some of these movies she's casting for.
Wow.
It was really interesting.
So we've got a setting, a very like eccentric and interesting setting. So we got to have a character, and I think obviously the main character is Skull, as far as I know, right? So it seems to me like a lot about the setting of Skulls and what this place was and what Printer's Alley was has to do with like the kind of eccentric people that created it. So where did Skull come from? How did he become this bizarre character that was a lovable curmudgeon and loved and hated and, you know, a star and all the things?
He's a North Nashville kid who came from Russian immigrant parents. His parents owned a shop, a dry goods store on, I think it was 12th and Jefferson, somewhere in North Nashville. And he was a baseball fan. And Nashville had a minor league baseball franchise called the Vols. 6 years old, he became a bat boy for the Vols. And he worked all the way up. He had a front office job by the time he was 19 or 20. And then World War II came. So he went to war as a clerk. He worked in the medical unit as a clerk, keeping hospital records, I believe. And this one story I love is that he was injured himself in Calcutta, India. So he was laid up, and his nurse was a pretty woman who told him that she had been a dancer. And he promised her, I'm going to open a club someday, and I want you to headline at my club. And he did it. And
wild.
Yeah, there was a story.
There's probably been a lot of guys who said that to a girl.
Exactly.
Right.
This time it worked, and she headlined, and we found the old articles in the Tennessean about the promise he made, and here she was headlining the club that he opened, just like he said.
Was he a changed person? Did the war change him? Was there like a normal baseball kid, and then he comes back and he's some sort of odd, eccentric dude?
I have a theory about that.
Yeah.
I think he had a role model who was younger than him named Mickey Kreitner. When Mickey Kreitner was 12 years old, he was catching the pitchers who were going to become major leaguers someday. And he grew up to be a Major League Baseball player. Mickey Kreitner of Nashville played for the Chicago Cubs and had a cup of coffee with the big league team during the World War II years when a lot of the players were overseas fighting. Kreitner had an injury, though, that kept him out of the war and kept him here, and he could play. But by the time he was 22, he owned 2 restaurants on Printers Alley. And I think that was the model that Skull copied. His buddy, Mickey Kreitner, who came from the same background that he did, bought 2 restaurants. Skull comes back from the war. He and 3 partners buy the Rainbow Room.
This is maybe a bit of a tangent, but follow me. So it's Oasis summer right now, just so everybody knows.
Our editor just flew back from California and saw the concert there.
Oh,
over
very
the weekend.
cool.
In Pasadena, yeah.
Very cool. And I'm happy. I think everybody watching my camera can see the record right here. So Skull did he not have like a car accident when he was a kid? Was it a head injury?
Yeah.
Part of the Oasis backstory is that Liam Gallagher, who's the lead singer, I said maybe. Okay, that guy. He was in a fight when he was a kid, and in the documentary Supersonic, he says, he's like, last week I would have, people are going to judge my accent, but I'm going for it anyway, okay?
Yeah.
He's like, it's like early in the week, I'd heard Madonna, and I thought, what's this then? This was rubbish. Then he gets into a fight.
Over Madonna?
No, who knows?
Oh, okay.
A schoolyard scrap. They're,
Okay.
They're Irish immigrant kids in Manchester, and he gets hit in the head with a hammer. And he's like, after he got hit in the head with a hammer, he's like, then I heard Madonna, and I was like, what's this? Oh, this is amazing. This is brilliant, And so I just can't commit to the accent. Anyway, so part of his backstory is he had no musical talent or interest. His older brother, Noel, who wrote all the songs, was always a musician.
Right.
He thought music was dumb. He was into sports. He gets hit in the head with a hammer. All of a sudden, he loves music. He starts singing, and he goes on to be in, one of the biggest bands in the world.
Well,
Skull.
It does spark this in me. So the story is that Skull was in a car accident when he was a kid and had a metal plate inserted into his head.
Yes.
And if you've hung around with athletes, ball players, they will pick on you. And his nickname became Skull.
Yeah.
Because of his malady, which that nickname gave us Skull's Rainbow Room. And then the death blow that killed him was a blow to the head.
Wow.
So, I mean, it all comes around, doesn't it?
I'm not a scientist, but I've just heard this lots of times that there's like a number of different interesting, especially like celebrities who's like have this before and after story with a head injury where they were like, whether it's comedians, like I think Roseanne Barr? She's been into a lot of trouble recently, right?
She has,
Yeah. So I think Roseanne, her backstory was like head injury in a car, and all of a sudden she comes out and she's incredibly hilarious and has the show that she had. Liam all of a sudden likes music, but like there's like a weird backstory of different people who got hit in the head and they become very interesting, eclectic people.
I'm not sure that applies. I think he was kind of destined to be what he was going to be. He was going to, his father was, like I said, a dry goods store owner, and I think Skull probably saw his dad working away and thought, and saw his buddy Mickey Kreitner with a restaurant and bar down at Printers Alley. There was a path for him I make the claim in the podcast that he's the most famous person Nashville has ever produced that never wore a sports uniform, never made a political speech, never wrote a song, never performed in front of an audience. I think he was kind of destined to be that because he had stick-to-itiveness and entrepreneurial skills, and just like he wasn't going to be told, no, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. People want an edgy place to hang, I'm going to give it to him. And he was going to make that happen no matter what.
Who are some of the like celebrities that came there back in the day?
Tons of wrestlers. I don't really know the names of.
Professional wrestlers were in there. The Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders.
The stars of Hee Haw.
Right. Those were the regulars.
Yeah.
He would run an after hours Hee Haw party whenever they needed to. And we interviewed a few of those cast members for the podcast, telling hilarious and some touching stories about Skull. Willie Nelson was his buddy. Elvis was his buddy. Elvis's manager, Tom Parker, was his buddy.
Tell that story, because that's in episode 1, right?
Yeah.
When you talk about Colonel Parker.
I saw the movie, the Austin Butler, Elvis movie.
Tom Hanks's Colonel Parker, right?
Tom Hanks plays
what
Colonel
a transformation.
But he's an asshole. He plays him as a kind of a mean and nasty dude. And so that was in my mind when we interviewed people who had known Skull back in the day. And we're hearing this story, and he says that, and his buddy Colonel Tom Parker. And I thought, didn't Tom Parker hate everyone? Well, when you need something from Skull, he can make it happen. I think that place was a magnet for things that needed to get done. If money needed to change hands, if some shady business needs to happen, that might be a place to go and have a meeting or, meet a person who you need to meet who you haven't seen before. And Colonel Tom Parker hung there. During the Elvis heyday. As I was unveiling this story to editors who were hearing about it for the first time, I remember my boss, Ben Goad, who's the executive editor at Tennessean, he couldn't believe how connected Skull was. He knew everybody who was anybody. Because you end up there at the end of the night. You bring somebody from out of town. Where are we going to go? Where's different? What's kind of like the Nashville place? If you don't want to go to Opryland and if you don't want to go to the Ryman, or if you've already been to the Ryman and you want to go out after the Ryman, why not Skull's Rainbow Room? It was weird and seedy and edgy.
Yeah.
And stars of today, Tim McGraw, kind of gives credit to Skull for giving him the time on the stage that helped push and skyrocket his career. And then also, we mentioned in the trailer that Paul McCartney wrote Sally G about Skull's Rainbow Room.
So Paul McCartney, coming off of Band on the Run, was in top of the charts and doing great. Came to Tennessee to get away. Brought his family, and he stayed with Curly Putnam, who was a old-time songwriter, and I'm blanking on the name of the song he wrote, but his full name was Curly Putnam Jr., and McCartney stayed on Junior's farm. And so he wrote a song called Junior's Farm, which became a big hit, and on the B-side was Sally G. And the lyrics are about the girl behind the bar on Printer's Alley at the Rainbow Room, or whatever. I forget exactly the lyrics, but he was in Skulls when he wrote that.
Oh, wow.
We tried to track down
Sally G.
And we thought we had her. Kirsten found a phone number close by, same age. We thought, and I called and left a long, hello, this is Keith Sharon from the Tennessean. I'm calling about Paul McCartney, and if this isn't Sally G, she really thought I was crazy. Because I heard that Paul McCartney wrote a song about you. Imagine getting that call. Yeah. If you're not Sally G.
I'd call you back anyway.
Right.
I'd want to know more.
She did not call me back.
Tell me about my song.
Yeah, right, exactly. So
I knew it was for me. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm going to be going to see him later this month.
Oh,
best
nice.
concert I've ever seen.
Really?
Where are you seeing? Is stadium?
No, well, so I'm going to Tulsa.
Okay.
Because he's playing at the Pinnacle here in Nashville.
Tickets went like that, and now they're like super expensive.
I was in early. I got the tickets into my cart. But do you know how much 2 tickets cost to Paul McCartney at the Pinnacle? Guess.
I'm going to guess.
500.
No. I saw them going for way more than that.
You are not a millennial.
I'm going to guess well over 1,000.
Well,
Like
$4,500
for
Shut
two.
for 2.
That's
Yes.
ridiculous. I mean, what level seats are we talking?
Well, it was it was like floor.
Okay.
Like good.
Okay.
Which is what I want, and I've become like weirdly entitled about like standing position in
Sure.
concerts. It's a problem. Like I wish I weren't this way.
Wait,
but I won't enjoy myself if I'm in the back. Like
You
will
have to
hate.
stand.
I got to be in the front.
Okay.
Yeah.
So whether that's
I'm
standing
often
or
not in the
sitting.
front. I
Let me
just
just
wish
say
I
that
were.
I was in the front at the Paul McCartney crowd. We're sitting, until
right. Yes.
until the great parts, and then you stand.
Yeah, but what
Right.
year was that?
No. That was just 2 weeks before the pandemic. So
okay, so
wow.
2020.
2020. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Dodger Stadium, outdoor venue, and the greatest song in concert I've ever heard, Live and Let Die. Dun-dun-dun.
That's the best Bond song there ever has been.
And when
I'm convinced.
dun-dun-dun-dun-dun, boom, and explosion, and the fireworks go off, and it was incredible. Loved it.
jealous.
Loved the McCartney, and of course you know every lyric to every song,
Right.
and
Yeah.
it's great. It's just great.
Let me clarify. I didn't buy those tickets.
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
You're going to Tulsa.
did we ever figure out why they were so expensive for Nashville?
My theory is because the Pinnacle's a 4,000 seat venue, which
So
is
it's so small.
so dumb to put Paul McCartney in a 4,000 seat
Right.
venue. And maybe it's a cynical view, but my view is that people with a lot of money love the idea of I get to see Paul McCartney in
small-
this intimate,
In this intimate
industry.
venue.
People will pay for it.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: my great seats were 4,500, but even if you were in the very back, your tickets were still well over 1,000,
Right.
and you're in the very back. We just couldn't justify it, so we found tickets in Tulsa.
Right.
Tulsa, everywhere else did stadiums and what arenas.
Arenas.
Right.
Where they would have $40 seats
Right.
and $1,000 seats if you want to be VIP.
Right.
So
Sure.
anyway, so we're going to Tulsa.
You're going to
Nice.
Tulsa. Great. It's worth it.
I'm sure.
Like we talked yesterday about seeing Dylan. It's a bucket list.
Yes.
I mean, there's Dylan and there's McCartney and who else?
I was close to paying the
Elton John.
Yeah.
4,500. I was close to doing it because I was like, my wife's like, there's no one on the planet worth that money for a show. And I was like, well,
One person. Yeah.
well, yeah. I'm like, well, he's 80 something.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
we're not
Yeah.
going to have a lot more Paul McCartney. And
And he's still good.
right. Brian Wilson passed this year.
Right.
I've got Pet Sounds right there.
Right.
I almost got to see him, and then he canceled the Nashville show because of back problems.
Yeah.
And then he kind of never came back here again.
Yeah.
But what I told her, I was like, well, if for $4,500 I could go in a time machine back to when Brian Wilson was alive and see him, I probably would.
Yeah.
Right.
So
So
The
why
same
how you
thing,
look
you
at
know,
it.
the cancellation, the same thing happened to me with Elton John.
Oh.
I had a free ticket. My boyfriend at the time, his parents bought tickets for the entire family and bought me a ticket too. And then the night before they canceled. And I was like, but at the time I was like, okay, well,
was this the Goodbye Yellow Brick Road?
No, it was like a tour right before that. Because this was when I was in college. So it was like 2011 or 2012, something like that. And then I was like, oh, well, I'll have plenty of time to see him. And then I didn't.
Yeah.
He just never came around close enough to me that I can make it work. And
Right.
now I have regrets.
With after that breakup, did you kind of still want to like be in that family though? So you get like the
free-
hookup?
Free tickets. Yeah. I mean,
Well, it sounds like a good family.
Yeah, they're pretty nice. They're a great family. So
Yeah. But we're just going to that gossip now. Tell us about. No, just kidding. Sorry, back to murder.
Well, I'm happily married now, so.
Nice. Okay, that guy's dead to us.
Yeah, he is.
So we've set the scene. We've got quite the character. What can you tell me about? And I know we want people to go listen to the podcast, but what can you tell me about how this man wound up dead, or interesting details about that? What can you tease?
January 21st, 1998. He came in at his normal time. It's a cold day in Nashville, slate gray sky, rainy. He comes in, he's wearing his hee-haw overalls with a garish red, white, and blue USA leather jacket. And he's sitting, it's the week of the Super Bowl. So he's sitting with the sports page at the bar. And somehow, some way, a person gets behind him. And the theory the police have is that grabbed him from behind and slit his throat 3 times. Ear to ear, throat slits, but that didn't kill him. He was bashed over the head, and that was the death blow, caved in the left side of his head. So he was rushed to Vanderbilt, and died at 3:00 in the morning in the hospital. Tanya Tucker sang at his bedside, and she's on our podcast singing the song that she sang at his bedside.
Speaking of early morning and Tanya Tucker, this used to be a photo studio upstairs for a country music photographer named Alan Messer. You should interview sometime. He'd have something interesting to say.
I bet he knew Skull.
He kind of knew everybody. And anyway, I guess Tanya Tucker called him at 1 a.m. and wanted to do a photo shoot. And so they did a photo shoot upstairs from here in the bathroom. Like they shot her in a shower. You can't tell it's a shower. It's not supposed to look like she's in a shower, but they did some sort of interesting photo effects or whatever.
An interesting note about Tanya Tucker, I remember she was walking her dog when I interviewed her, and I asked her to sing. And so while she was walking her dog, she just belted out this song. But
private performance for you.
Well, it was punctuated by
Hannah Mae Allison, who came in and sang in our office the same song farther along, and it was absolutely beautiful. Dare I say, Parton-esque, I thought. She sounded so good. I was so happy with her performance. But anyway, as I was interviewing Tanya Tucker and telling her some of the details about the crime, she said, "Oh, Skull sold me a pair of hee-haw overalls. But he sold me the short shorts kind." And she said she's worn them a few times over the years, but she still has the same outfit that Skull was killed in. So the case goes cold. What always struck me, there's no scientific evidence. That whole crime scene, which had blood everywhere. There's blood on the floor, blood on the pole that's holding up the building, blood underneath the seat where Skull was sitting, blood in the women's bathroom, on the sink, on the towel. There's a footprint. There may have even been 2 footprints in the place. And because the paramedics came, things were straightened up.
Trampled on.
Or trampled on. Chairs were moved and bottles were moved around. And when the police took crime scene photos, furniture was in different positions. Broken photos off the wall were picked up and moved, and the crime scene rendered no help at all. Couldn't use any clues to solve the case. No scientific evidence. No DNA, no fingerprints, no blood. No, nothing. And they tried to build a case through interviews with people.
Yeah, the crime scene retention was not good at that time. But I will also say, to their credit, it wasn't initially a homicide, right? It was an assault and a presumed robbery. And so they were focused on getting this man to the hospital as quickly as possible to try and save his life.
Was he not all the way dead?
He was
not all the way dead.
No. Yeah.
Well, that's a tough guy.
Right.
Yeah. 81 years old.
Yeah.
Who'd had injuries in the past and held on for that long. But the ear-to-ear knife wounds didn't kill him. Would not have died if those were the only wounds. It was the blow to the head that got him. And so how do you make a blow to the head in a bar like that? What is around? So the killer must have either carried the weapon out with him or bashed his head against the pole or used a liquor bottle. And then how does a liquor bottle not break? And how hard do you have to hit somebody to crush the side of their skull and not break the liquor bottle? And then what do you do with the liquor bottle once you've hit him? Do you put it back on the shelf? Were you wearing gloves? The liquor bottles inside the club weren't all tested for fingerprints. Police missed that. The cash register, open in a picture, closed in another. Witnesses said that when they came in with skull on the floor, it was open, and then suddenly in the photos it's closed. But there's no fingerprints on the cash register. So
all this crime scene tampering and shenanigans, because we've been painting this picture of this like olden times, it kind of just sounds at first glance to me like, oh yeah, back in the day they didn't do anything. But I'm like, well, wait a minute. This was 1998. Like, I think CSI was on TV.
CSI was on TV.
Right. Like, people knew about this stuff. It was real at the time.
This is, 4 years after OJ? So we knew about DNA. DNA was a thing.
Let me tell you an OJ story really quick, just because I'll never get another chance to share this.
Sure.
I was in Robin Hood's Bay. It's in England. It's a small, tiny 1500 smuggler town. And we went to a quiz night, which is trivia night. A lot of fun. Anyway, at the end of the night, as we're kind of closing up, I went and talked to this. There was one guy at the bar. I asked him what he did and, just tried to connect. And he's like, oh, I'm a barrister. And I'm like, a barista? And he's like, no, the equivalent of what you would call a lawyer, whatever. And he goes on, and he just had this smug vibe. He just seemed so like, think of the like British I'm higher and mightier than you character from a movie. He was that guy. And so he tells me they actually still wear the wigs, like the 1700s. He's like, and he explained to me why he thinks that's great and everything. Okay, so to OJ, he's like, yes, I remember your case with OJ, the lawyer gets up there and says, if the glove doesn't fit, he must be innocent. And I'm like, you just messed up the best rhyme in all of law.
One of the most iconic law lines to ever law.
He literally said, you must be innocent.
You must acquit. If the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit. Anyway, and then he's like, yeah, that seemed more like something one of our third-year students would have done. And I'm just like, fuck you.
Okay, sir.
Your third-year student
this is why we left your country.
would have won the OJ case then. Yeah. So I was there, by the way. I covered the reaction. I was in the parking lot the day of the acquittal. And so you probably won't know this name, but I noticed walking to his car, so upset after, was Steve Garvey, who was the first baseman for the Dodgers and later the Padres, kind of borderline, almost Hall of Fame player who hung around with OJ in those circles, and he and his wife at the time were friends with OJ and Nicole, and he represented Nicole. He wanted justice, and he was so mad, and I walked with him to his car and did a story about Steve Garvey being upset that OJ had gotten off.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was the general vibe of reactions?
It was horror and glee at the same time. People were jumping up and down, excited. This was the greatest thing that happened. And there were people that were just shocked. He's so guilty. How could this possibly happen? And I was concentrating on getting my story, and I thought, I've got a good one because Steve Garvey was so famous, and I found him in the parking lot that I wasn't really paying attention, but I've since watched all the documentaries and all the stuff, and So.
Would you say the modern day equivalent is like Casey Anthony?
There is no
equivalent. You don't think?
No,
but was, in terms of the shock and awe of someone who, in a lot of people's opinions, is very clearly guilty and is now acquitted.
Yeah, I mean, and wall-to-wall coverage. But so OJ was the first. OJ created the lawyer on TV.
Sure.
And probably had a lot to do with popularity of the CSI type shows because, DNA was new and that's what those shows are based on, is the science. In this case, by the way, we interviewed the prosecutor who had nothing. So he had to explain to the jury, Jim Todd is his name, he's now a judge in Nashville. We went to his chambers. What a great interview he was. But he laughed about how little he had to go on. And he had to tell the jury, all that stuff that you see on TV, we have none of that. There's no scientific basis for anything I'm going to tell you.
Ugh.
So
it reminds me of a favorite John Mulaney joke. Do you guys know him?
Yeah.
Sure.
He's like, what were crime scenes like before DNA? Just detective goes in and like, sir, we found the victim in a pile of the killer's blood. Gross. Anyway, back to my hunch.
Right. Back to my hunch.
And that's like this. So I wanted to ask, do you think there was purposeful destruction of evidence or just bad police work, or was Nashville just behind the times of CSI?
I think it was just incompetence. I think it's a little bit mostly incompetence, but also the fact that they didn't know exactly what they had at the time. Being with, Skull was injured, he wasn't dead, so they didn't have to. The immediate concern was not preserving the crime scene. The immediate concern was taking him out and getting him to the hospital. So we think that's where a lot of like trampling happened and things getting knocked off the walls. And then just like probably the crime scene, security. Well, we know the crime scene security was not great. They let some people in there they shouldn't have.
Wait to hear those stories. I mean, the crime scene was not even the door was open. People were walking around in there. The other problem they had, Kirsten started to go there, but they were looking for a knife.
Yeah.
In their minds, someone stabbed Skull to death. And that wasn't true.
They didn't know that until after the medical examiner had done his autopsy and concluded that it was the blow to the head. So it took a couple days before they really knew that was the thing that killed him and that they actually needed to be looking for something that would have bashed his skull in instead of a knife.
Do you think somebody could have hit him over the head with a bottle of alcohol, it breaks, and then they...
Well, the problem is they never mention... There's no mention of spilled liquor or any...
broken glass.
Or broken glass. Right. Yeah. I mean, there could have been spilled liquor underneath his blood, but we don't know.
If it evaporated. And complicating matters, the first witnesses were people on the same night. Now, this is coincidence that's kind of weird. They got 2 knife calls in the first hour after Skull was attacked with a knife. And they thought, we got to go find those guys, because the manager of Burger King, which was right down the road, called and said there's a guy in here, a crazy person swinging a knife. And they got a call from a pawn shop a few doors away. There's a guy in here with a knife. And they thought, well, let's go get him. That's the guy. They had a name. They called him Crazy Leon. We're going to go arrest Crazy Leon, who's going into these places on Printer's Alley, threatening people with a knife. Well, first of all, a knife didn't kill him. And second, the guy they called Crazy Leon didn't even have a knife. And so the reporting wasn't accurate, and the police work wasn't solid and accurate, and it made for...
a messy case.
To say the least, a messy case that they needed to solve.
The only witness that night was...
Skull's dog. Yeah. No.
Which we haven't even touched on the poodles.
So David Schulman was, I think, a genius marketer. The first... 10 years of his...
AKA Skull.
Yeah, Skull. Yeah. Skull was a genius marketer. His first 10 years in the business was all about arrests. He was in the newspaper all the time, in handcuffs. Skull's Rainbow Room raided by the feds last night for alleged illegal gambling, or he let couples dance on Sunday when they're not allowed to do that, or he was serving alcohol when you're not allowed to mix drinks, or whatever the rules were at the time, he was breaking them. Or his strippers were more nude than they were allowed to be, or didn't follow the closeness to the patrons, or they were breaking some rule, and he was getting thrown in jail. His club was being padlocked, closed down for a couple of days. He was paying fines. That was the David Skull Schulman story until he got those poodles. When he got the poodles, he was suddenly the sweet guy who loves French poodles. He would walk them with rhinestone leashes. He would dye them for holidays, red and green for Christmas, red, white, and blue for 4th of July. And he would get front page stories in the Tennessean when he took them to the bank to open a bank account in each of the dogs' names. He had a baby playpen that he kept the French poodles in the back of the bar. The dogs softened him up. And the story that I heard, even before I knew we would ever do this investigation into this case, was there was this great murder in Nashville where a dog was the only witness, and it was the Skull case. He had a dog at the time, and in the police file, there's a couple of references to dog incidents that they checked out, and you'll have to listen to the podcast to find out what happened. But that dog may have provided evidence, more evidence than the crime scene did, for sure.
Before we move on to season 1,
okay,
did the police ever convict anybody? I mean, you don't have to give these details away because I know it's like later stuff. But was somebody convicted?
Yes, somebody was convicted. And that somebody...
Technically 2 people.
Yeah, technically 2 people. The person who is still in prison has been talking to us at length on the phone. We have hours and hours and hours of him on the phone.
It's like Serial.
Yeah. Well, you said it.
Yeah. Do you have the this is a...
We do.
We do.
Nice.
We certainly do. And we have lots of phone calls with him, and... his name's James Cavey, and we're going to tell his story too.
Wow. Do you think the police got it right?
We come back to that question probably weekly. And I think I'm a very logical person. And I think given the evidence that I know is presented at trial, I would have a hard time convicting him. Having spoken with him, I don't think this is spoiling anything to say he does not come off as a likable guy. He knows he's an asshole. He admits to doing some asshole shit, in prison. He's a complicated dude for sure. So I don't...
Does he say he's innocent?
Oh,
yes.
Yeah, 100%.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
He's never in his life set foot inside the Rainbow Room. He never knew Skull until... after he was dead. He heard stories about him. He's a good and prolific storyteller about... He claims, I don't remember things that happened, and then he goes on for an hour about everything that happened while he was in Nashville. He's got a really interesting story to tell. I don't want to take a public position on it. I have my thoughts. I try to pin Kirsten down all the time. What do you believe? Do you think this is true? What do you think that's true? What if this happened? What if actually? And this case is full of those kinds of twists.
We have had screaming matches at each other in the office over details of this case that he is convinced to go one way and I'm convinced to go the other.
Yeah.
So there are debatable things, debatable topics.
Here's what I'll say. When you finish, you will have an opinion.
Yeah,
Okay.
probably, yeah.
You will either think that guy did it and deserves all of the stuff that happened to him, or you will think, oh my God, they got this wrong. That poor guy. no matter how he comes off in interviews, ooh, he got railroaded.
And it's important to say that he was 17 years old at the time of this crime.
Wow.
So, I mean, I know 17-year-olds know what they're doing, but in the context of things, he was a baby, right? Like, he was so young.
It's compelling. Adding to Cavey's story, the most stunning secondary interview we did was with Jim Todd, the prosecutor, who talks about this case differently than any prosecutor I've ever... I've been in the business more than 40 years, a journalist. I've covered courts. I've interviewed prosecutors and defense attorneys and judges for years and years. I've never heard a prosecutor talk about a case like this, about its flaws, about how he had nothing, about how he thought he was going to lose the case, how he was surprised that he got a conviction in this. Even now, as I sit here, I think prosecutors aren't supposed to be like that. Prosecutors are supposed to be sure. They're supposed to tell the truth and put the bad guys in prison, not wonder if they got the right guy and wonder how this is going to play with the jury and second guess, did I do the right thing? You know, it's illuminating to hear Jim Todd talk about this case in retrospect. He's the one who led the effort to put James Cavey behind bars. And how do you have that opinion of your case, how weak it was?
Yeah, and I think we got so much candor from him specifically because he has been on both sides of the aisle, right? Like, he was a prosecutor, obviously he was in this case, but he's also been a defense attorney, and now he's a judge. So I think he's
done the gamut.
He's done it all, right? And I think he kind of, prosecutors typically hold things very close to the chest, but defense attorneys love to point out the problems in prosecutors' cases. So I think there was a little bit of the two sides of him warring with each other when we discussed this case. And so I think we were pleasantly surprised with our interview with Jim. He was very open and honest with us.
Which is cool that somebody be, honest about it because, I mean, there is a moral conundrum if you put the wrong person behind bars potentially, and if you're not sure about that.
Right.
But at the same time, he's doing his job, and at the same time, it's, 20 or 30 years ago, so you've maybe grown and seen more things. And
27 years ago. Wow. And James Cavey counts those days. And he's sitting there, hoping this podcast sheds new light. And so we'll see how people react. I don't know. Like I said, I think that you'll be able to form an opinion, whichever way it is, at the end.
Has he worked with the Tennessee Innocence Project at all?
Let's just say that we have an expert in James Cavey's innocence or not sitting with us right here. When we started, I'll just set this up.
Yeah.
When we started way back, Kirsten and I had a meeting. What are the responsibilities going to be? And the first thing I thought was, because it was so specific, such a laser-focused task, James Cavey's claim of innocence, take it. And so she did a deep dive. We met with the Innocence Project. We've been in their office. She looked at all kinds of other Supreme Court cases and Tennessee cases, and so here she is to explain Tennessee Innocence Project to you.
James reached out to, I can't remember what the exact title of it was, but it was like a kind of a precursor to the Innocence Project that we have now in Tennessee. And he was talking to them, but then they kind of became defunct. And so he was kind of left out in the open, so there was really no movement on it. And then when the Tennessee Innocence Project came back several years later, James kind of re-engaged that process. And the Tennessee Innocence Project is a multi-tiered application process. So he applies, and then they kind of do an initial intake, informational type of process, and then they do maybe conduct a couple interviews with him, or via letters or phone calls or whatever, and then they kind of go on and decide, one, do we think that this person is innocent? That's always the first question that they need to answer for themselves.
Great first question.
Sure, yeah. The Tennessee Innocence Project does not represent people who they don't believe are innocent.
But before you go on, hold that thought. What they mean by that is they don't want to take someone who has a technicality on their side, and there was a blown legal issue, and we're going to represent them because of the legal issue. That's not a Innocence Project case. The Innocence Project cases are innocent.
Right.
Did not do this crime. No matter if somebody did an illegal search on their car and found the gun, and that's not the way it's supposed to go. This one, we think this guy didn't do it.
Gotcha.
Right. So that's the first barrier to cross. And then the second one is there a legal path forward to bring this back to court, whether that be, a witness recanting testimony or new evidence in the case. And if they decide that, yes, there is a path back, then they move forward with the case. So James has told us that he is still kind of in those first steps of this process. And Jason Gitchner is the director of the Tennessee Innocence Project. And he told us flat out, he's like, I'll do an interview with you guys, but I will not tell you if we're taking his case. Because he's so fiercely, as he should be, protective of not giving anyone any false hope. Right.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Because there are definitely situations where they believe people are innocent, but there's no path forward in court, which would be the worst case scenario, right? It's super sad because there's nothing they can do for this person who's probably going to spend the rest of their sentence in prison, even though they're confident that he or she is innocent. So Jason is very careful about making sure he doesn't give anyone any false hope.
Let me just say, before you go on a little too far, we have a few surprises about this case that the Tennessee Innocence Project may be interested in.
Well, without giving too much more away, we should probably talk about season 1, but I'd be remiss to not to ask, was there anything else you wanted to share about this case?
It's a sweeping case that I think our goal was to make it as much about music and nostalgia as it is about murder. Sometimes I listen to true crime podcasts, and my criticism is that it's all police reports, coroner's reports, interviews with witnesses, details about the crime, and the legal process. This is not that. This is a full, where were you in 1969 when the Johnny Cash show opened on ABC TV, and the following week, Hee Haw opened on CBS. It's a musical feast where the Spotify playlist that I'm going to do for every artist and song mentioned is voluminous, hundreds of songs mentioned. And we'll tell the backstories of interesting characters that came in and out of Schulman's life, all of them connected to him somehow. It was amazing doing this who's who list of famous country stars who remember the time they were in Skull's Rainbow Room, and this incredible thing happened to them. The podcast is full of that. So it's a history podcast, it's a music podcast, it's a murder podcast, it's a Nashville podcast.
And I told you this yesterday, when you were showing me the episode, I feel like it could be a book. It could be an audiobook if you wanted it to be, because you're going into all sorts of depth. That's not just the murder. And I think season 1 was kind of like that as well, where you're learning kind of a lot about Nashville, about music, about all these different characters and ways things worked.
I think the thing that separates, though, season 1 from season 2 is not only the location is different.
And not only, finally got some good help.
Why, thank you. Yeah.
I guess it's probably the derogatory to call you help, but he had a partner and finally.
Gave me an official title with the podcast, we'll put it like that. But I mean, not only that it's not on Music Row technically this year, but is that in season 1, it really focuses on the decade of the crime, right? And that kind of is where it sits and it stays. This season, we're all over the map as far as like music and decades, and it's really a historical tour of Perner's Alley in Nashville.
You should have been there the day, you're going to laugh, that we had to pick the music.
Oh, God.
Because what's the difference between a stripper song from the 1940s and a stripper song today? We argued over what is the example of stripper music that should be in the background of, and we went back and forth and had different people coming in, and her, You Can Leave Your Hat On by Joe Cocker, and some of the other like 1980s hair bands.
Yeah, like Whitesnake, and like that's my mind.
Some sugar
You're on me. Thank
Yeah.
you. That's literally the song I sang.
Yeah.
I was like, that in my mind is what like what women are stripping to, and his
I was
mind,
like,
his was very like jazzy and like sensual, and I was like, yeah. And I was like, I don't. Big band.
Yeah,
I was
just
like, that's not the vibe, Keith.
There's like 60s movies.
Right.
Strippers.
Right. I was like, when I think
Bond.
he was giving, and I keep coming back to this phrase, and he's probably sick of me. I'm like, every time you bring a song to me, it's giving like LA noir, like weird, like,
saxophone.
I'm like, everything's in black and gray, and you're opening this like frosted glass door to a PI smoking in the like with his feet up on his desk. Like that's what I was imagining with this music he's giving me, and I was like, I don't think so, sir.
Well, I won a few of the arguments, but you'll hear that we battled over the songs.
My impression is that it's like house music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But as my wife well knows, I have never been to a strip club. So
I'm glad you repeated that.
Disclaimer.
Right. I'm glad you repeated that.
So I only know movies.
Right.
Sure.
Right.
And I close my eyes. So
Right.
I don't see those parts. Babe. Now, here we are on Music Row in the studio we're in. This was Waylon's office for a period of time. And I told you before it was a country music photographer. This house goes back to being a music business all the way back to 1980. Potentially before. I haven't met anybody from before then, but I know at least since the 80s, stars of country music and of Nashville have been coming here for a variety of reasons. And some even in the chair I'm sitting in to do podcasts. 2 blocks down, in the 80s, there was a murder. For the longest time when I searched for my podcast on YouTube, you don't find me first. What you find is Murder on Music Row, and it used to be just the song would come up, and then, of course, it turned into the podcast. So
That's just good marketing right there.
Yeah.
I'm so happy about that.
That's good SEO work.
Yeah. I'm so happy about that.
yeah, so you've been beating me for years. There was a Murder on Music Row, and there's this song tie-in that I feel like you tease this out in the show, but I don't know if I ever settled on a full understanding. Was the song at all written about that murder? Was it a double entendre, or is it coincidental?
So I was sure that the song was literally about the murder. I mean, nobody saw him running from 16th Avenue. Nobody found a fingerprint or the weapon that was used. That's exactly what happened in real life. So the first interview I did when I started that podcast was I called Larry Cordell, who wrote Murder on Music Row, the song. And the first thing he said to me was, no, it didn't have anything to do with...
Just be like, you're wrong.
Yeah, that's what it was like. And so I thought, you know what? I'm a reporter. I'm going to get to the bottom of this. I called his writing partner, Larry Schell, who said it didn't have anything to do with the real case. We were trying to do...
Why are you hiding the truth, sir?
Right. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm the reporter, and I'm telling you, you're wrong.
Right. And so they were writing, they used murder as a metaphor for, what they believed was a problem in country music, that country music had lost its way. And, the Possum and Hank Williams couldn't make it in today's country. And they were talking about the 1990s. There's an interesting connection, though, between both seasons. So I'm talking to Cordell, And I'm asking him specific questions about, well, there was a real murder on 16th Avenue South, and there was no weapon found, and the case went cold for 13 years, and it's just like the song you wrote. And he says, you know what? People thought when I wrote that song that I was writing about Skull's Rainbow Room. In the very first interview I did for the other podcast, he mentioned Skull's Rainbow Room, and I kept that in the back of my mind. Oh, people thought that he was writing about Skull's Rainbow Room. That must be an interesting case. And it ended up being. So
wow.
What I thought was so fascinating was I was doing a story about dreamers. That's what it was about. Kevin Hughes, who was a chart director, that was his dream job. Sammy Sadler, who was his friend, was a dreamer. He wanted to be a country star. All of them. Larry Cordell was a dreamer from a holler in Kentucky. Came to Nashville to make it. I was telling the story of people coming to Nashville and oftentimes having their dreams crushed. I mean, it's a murder story, sure, and it's a spectacular 2 bullets in the back of the head, execution style in the middle of the street, with Willie Nelson and Chris Christopherson standing along the police tape, Faith Hill running to the body in the middle of the street. It doesn't get any more Nashville than that, but as Kirsten mentioned earlier, it's of a time and place. 3 days before, Garth Brooks released I'm Too Young to Feel This Damn Old, and Nashville was forever changed. And so it was the music that drove me forward. And as Cordell told the song about he and his buddy sitting, writing, and I got a title for you, buddy, Murder on Music Row. And he said, I knew exactly what it was about. And it wasn't the murder on Music Row. Wow. It was about killing country music. And that song, between those buddies, became CMA Song of the Year. And so that process of how 2 people shooting the shit, write down some lyrics and some chords, and suddenly we've got George Strait and Alan Jackson winning CMA Song of the Year. I wanted to tell that story too. It was
that's kind of your B story, right?
Yeah, it's the B story. When you look at Nashville, it can be the Garth Brooks story. It can be Trisha Yearwood. It could be Bobby Braddock, who I interviewed, and Tony Arata, 2 songwriters who came out of nowhere and made it and wrote some of the greatest songs ever in history in Nashville. You can do that. Or you can be like Dawn Dormany, who came from Texas, thought she was going to be a star, and lost $250,000 paying seedy promoters who lied to her about making her a star. And Kevin Hughes kind of stood between both. He was the guy who said who's hot and who's not. And if you come to Nashville, you want to be on his list. You want to be in the top 10 of independent artists, but how do you get there?
Yeah, so that's kind of the interesting backdrop for me, and I didn't come to Nashville until 2012. So Cashbox was dead, but so for the uninitiated, I probably should have started this like I did the first one. In 1989, a man was found dead on the street of 16th Avenue South, and we are right now on South Street, at the corner of 16th and South.
We passed Belmont Church on the way here, and that's where he was eulogized.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's where the service was held.
So it happened right here, but back in the 80s. So from my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, but so today we all know and love the Billboard charts. The Billboard charts are the official record of who's doing well or not. And today we have SoundScan, which factually checks what records are being sold, or now it's streamed and downloaded, and it's all thrown into an algorithm. And so there are actual factual numbers on who's doing the best. But back in the 80s, there existed Cashbox, right?
Yep, Cashbox Magazine.
And they did charts. And a lot of what your story is about is how corrupt that was, and that essentially seems like that's probably what led to his murder, right? Or we can say...
Sure. He did his chart with a pencil and graph paper and a ruler and a phone. He would call up radio stations and find out how many times so-and-so had been played. He would beg them for their top 10 lists of hot new artists. He would add up all of the totals from the radio stations, and that would be reflected in his weekly top 50, top 100.
And this was Kevin?
This was Kevin Hughes, yeah.
Yeah. And so he didn't own Cashbox, right? He like worked for them?
He was an intern who was given the full-time job as chart director. I think
Which is kind of crazy.
I think because they thought they could manipulate him. They thought, oh, here's a 23-year-old kid from Belmont University. He's got stars in his eyes. We'll be able to...
You're the chart director, Kevin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you... here's an extra $150 or $10,000 or whatever. My singer needs to be number 3 this week. And Kevin would say, well, that's not how it's supposed to work. Kevin was a good Christian kid from Carmi, Illinois. And, went to Sunday school every week and came to Nashville because he loved making music charts. And he was a reader of the Billboard Hot 100 and wanted to...
Did he make his own charts when he was like a kid or something?
Yeah, he made his own charts in his bedroom.
Wow.
If he didn't agree with the Billboard charts, he would make his own. And so when he came here, he saw that he would turn in to the publisher, which was in Los Angeles, he would turn in his work and the charts would be different by the time they were printed. And he realized that there was something going on. And the rumor was that he was about to tell the Tennessean.
Which is like the biggest tragedy of all, right? Like he was a kid and he thought he was getting the opportunity of a lifetime to do what he's always wanted to do in a city that's known for it, right? And then it gets him killed. And that's just...
He had integrity.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and it takes a 23-year-old to have the like wide-eyed idealism to be like, this isn't right. It should be more like this, and to look at the industry in the face of like, you guys are all doing it right. It's the emperor,
right?
The emperor's new clothes,
yeah,
kind of a thing. To look at the industry and be like, what are you guys doing, and think you can change it.
And I talk to people who, they had songs that were crap and would end up in the top 10 and never played on the radio. They would always play on some out-of-town station. They would pay for promotion. Here's $10,000, Mr. Promoter. And the promoter would tell him, thank you very much. You know what? Your song in Oklahoma is number 3 right now. And we're going to get them to call Cashbox Magazine and report those numbers, and therefore you'll be in Cashbox's top 10 this week. And really, there was just money being changing hands under the table. They were literally buying chart positions. And I interviewed a guy who remembered it was $50,000 for number 1 and descending in $10,000 all the way down.
It's so interesting because, you and I were talking about this yesterday, that reality now in some ways is harder than ever to understand or to quantify. We don't know, like, if your reality on your phone is different than my reality. I mean, what were you saying earlier there? Your phone is telling you to advertising lava lamp repairs?
Yeah, teaching me how to revive old lava lamps right now.
It's like, as far as you...
What kind of human being must you be?
In the days...
A cool and groovy one, Keith.
Groovy. Yeah, like if we were in the days of mass media, then we would have to assume by looking at your phone that the most important big deal thing going on right now, like lava lamps are having their year. If either of you looked at my feed, you would know, like I do, that it's Oasis Summer, and that is the only thing going on in the world. It's the main thing going on, actually. We all have a different little reality from our phone. Our news is all targeted to us, everything. Right. And so it's so hard. And then now with AI and deep fakes, we're like, we don't even know. Somebody watching this doesn't even know if this conversation's real.
Right.
I could effectively change your answers or my questions if we really wanted to.
But I think you're about to say that back in the day, it was more truthful. But what we found, it wasn't truthful at all then either.
Right. Well, no, I was going to say is back in the day, that's what's interesting to me is I'm always hearing about and thinking about like how reality is a story. So you put in this nostalgic vision of the past that it's like, yeah, it used to be honest. But
Not at all.
No.
It was just dishonest in a different way.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
With pencils.
And with pencils. Dishonesty with pencils.
That's the name of the episode,
That
baby.
could be the name of the episode. Yes. I love that. But there were people in town who would kill you over it. You know, it was a gravy train for them. And imagine if they could manipulate a couple of magazines or a couple of different people who had a rich husband or a rich father who was bankrolling their way. I interviewed one guy who said he had a coal company backing him as an investment, so he could pay his way through. And he had number one songs. He would meet a promoter. They would say, "Well, it's going to cost you this number to be famous in Nashville." And he would pay because it was the coal company paying. And he saw his name rise up in the charts. So what'd he do? He got a job at Cashbox Magazine because he wanted to be in on this. And then when he saw he dropped out, Mark, I don't mean to suggest you were doing anything wrong, but he was part of he was benefiting from the scam. He was paying his way through. There used to be Shoney's on Music Row on 16th Avenue South. Promoters would sit in the booths waiting to hear people coming from out of town saying, "I'm going to make it in Nashville." They would be there with their grandparents who were funding their trip, and they'd walk up to them and say, "I can tell from your speaking voice that you would be a great singer. Can you come to my studio and I can work with you and I can get you a hit song? But that's going to cost you 10 grand. Did I say 10? I mean 20. I'm sorry. I misspoke. It's 30. and that's the game. And then suddenly you're out $250,000 and you're a hairdresser in Texas like Don Dormany was. There was deep fakes without technology. There used to be awards shows where they would invite people. It would all be decided ahead of time, and they would invite the people they were scamming to make them think that they really had clout in the business. Mm-hmm. You're the promising new singer of the year.
Yeah.
And it means nothing.
These things still exist.
Right. Yeah. I'm sure they do.
My pop country band I was in won a music video award, and I'm sure they had to pay to submit, the people who were kind of managing it. I'm sure.
Right.
And then you get there and it's like they rented out a bar in Memphis for the night, and
that's in the podcast.
You feel a little special, but
literally that story happens all the time. Mm-hmm. And so here was this kid who said, it shouldn't be this way. And he publicly, at the country radio seminar, which is every year the radio disc jockeys get together in Nashville, and it's at like a conference, and in front of a bunch of people, a guy tried to pay him off, and he declined. And there was an argument, and people saw, and he was dead within a week.
Wow.
You take the money.
He went against the machine.
Everyone takes the money.
Publicly.
Yeah, he publicly went against the machine, and the machine wins in that case.
Now, there's a whole nother complication that's a big part of the story, which is Sammy Sadler. Okay.
Yes, there is.
So Sammy Sadler is, I'm so impressed with myself I remembered that name. But I've heard it 1,000 times in the podcast, but I'm like, thank God. I didn't even know the name of my own podcast in the beginning. So Sammy Sadler's with him, right? And they're hanging out. Maybe you could share kind of the details of that night and lay out the timeline of who these two guys are, what they're doing that leads to Kevin's death. What happened that night, and why are things fishy with Sammy, and what do we think of him?
Sammy Sadler was a country singer who worked at Evergreen Records as kind of an office boy. He answered the phones. He did errands. He promoted his own music. He would call up radio stations and say, hey, we've heard Sammy Sadler is a hot young act. Can you play his music? And he would collect statistical information about himself and others. So radio station XYZ reports to Sammy Sadler that Sammy Sadler had 10 plays this week, Sammy would call Kevin Hughes and say, hey, the report from Evergreen Records is 10 for Sammy Sadler. And Kevin would record that. And suddenly, Sammy went from 87th on the chart to 54th on the chart. And then he was 36th on the chart, and then 14th on the chart. I asked Sammy about his father's money because I thought maybe his father was just not telling his son what he was spending. But Sammy knew that he had spent money to invest in other bands. I had interviewed so many people at the time when I interviewed Sammy who had paid their way to get onto those charts. Just didn't ring true that he had not. Like, there's this game going on that he denied playing, yet his songs were highly ranked and like on the way up. How was he doing that? I don't know. Just like in season 2, I don't take a public position on.
And why don't you?
Well, because I think it's my job as a journalist. You know, I've got to be able to.
You're from the olden times where you're supposed to be an impartial reporter of the news.
Yeah, I've
got
got
to
to
gossip.
If Sammy came in right now and sat there in a chair, ladies and gentlemen, Sammy Sadler. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
But
now I'm going to AI myself to
It's
look like him.
that's the surprise guest.
that's the surprise guest.
What if I had done that to you? That'd be so messed up. He just walks right. Well, come to speak of it.
It would be really dramatic. But so I have to be in a position to be able to sit down and have a logical, factual conversation with him. And if I'm out here accusing him of something, Sammy, I interviewed the cops who believed that he was involved in Kevin's death. I interviewed the prosecutor who believed he was involved in Kevin's death, but they didn't charge him. He testified for the prosecution in the case. They had nothing. There's a circumstantial case that could be made against
What's
him.
the circumstantial case that could be made?
The circumstances are that.
Do you take a stance? I'm just kidding.
Kirsten, how would you answer that
No
question?
comment.
Okay, all right.
Kirsten, you're millennial. You know how we are. Just like, he killed him.
Yeah. I would say there are things that are suspect about
Sus.
the situation. Sus, exactly.
There are some sus things. So on the morning that Kevin died, March 9th, 1989, Sammy was the one who called Chuck Dixon. So spoiler alert, Chuck Dixon was like this wannabe mobster / promoter, producer guy who wore the pinky rings and the unbuttoned shirts with the chest hair and rolled around as much as he could in a limo around Nashville and kind of was a bigger than life personality on the fringes of the music scene. So he wasn't Tony Brown, the president of MCA, who I interviewed in the podcast. He wasn't, Clive Davis. He wasn't, but he acted like that, right?
Yeah.
And
Tony Brown is kind of like the Nashville Clive Davis.
Yeah. And like the, everything he touched turned to gold for a while, you know? He was killing it. And that no pun intended, really. But so there's this guy, Chuck Dixon, and
he's a wannabe.
He's the guy who controlled the chart. He's the guy who decided who's number 1, who's number 2. So the money flowed through him. And he doled it out to who needed to be greased. And Kevin Hughes wouldn't take the money. And Sammy found out that Kevin wasn't going to play ball. And he's the one who called Chuck Dixon on the day Kevin died and said, 4 songs are dropping off the chart this week. And one of those was his. So Chuck then starts to put pressure on Kevin, trying to call him, trying to call everybody who knows Kevin. This chart's got to come out. He had obligations. He had promised chart positions to people, and Kevin was no longer going to play ball. So it just so happened that Sammy Sadler told me he got in an argument with his wife that night, needed some place to hang out, could have been anybody among all his friends. He decided, I'm going to give Kevin Hughes a call just to see what's going on. Kevin was wrapping up the chart. He came to Cashbox offices, asked Kevin, you want to go to dinner? They went around 9 o'clock to Captain D's on West End.
Not even a nice place.
I know. On the way back to pick up Kevin's car, I'm sorry, to pick up Sammy's car, because Kevin was driving Kevin's car. Sammy said, hey, I need to stop and make a phone call to my parents at 10 o'clock at night on a Thursday. With he and his buddy in the car after going to dinner, let's stop by
Sammy says that.
Sammy says, let's stop by my record label where he was recording his songs, Evergreen Records on 16th Avenue South. And let's go inside, and I've got to make a phone call because I can get my calls for free there. They won't know I won't have to pay for them. He says that while they're inside, they hear the front door rattle, and he peeks out, or Kevin peeks out and sees a black guy. And so there's some mysterious black guy walking around outside of Evergreen Records. And they make the call to Sammy's parents. They decide to go pick up Sammy's car. They walk across the street, and a guy in a ski mask jumps out of the bushes and shoots Sammy first in the elbow and chases Kevin down. Kevin falls and shoots him twice in the head in the middle of 16th Avenue South. And that's where the Highwaymen were recording, and Willie Nelson and Chris Christopherson came outside to see what was going on and stood along the police tape that night as Kevin lay dying in the street. And Faith Hill heard the shots and ran to the body. There was a number of people on the street that night. Kevin was dead at the scene. And Sammy was shot at the scene. So Sammy's position is that he's a tragic victim of this corrupt Nashville system. He took a bullet for country music. He said that many times, and his good friend Kevin got killed. And I started to look at the case and found out that Sammy himself was the number one suspect for a long time. How does the guy in the ski mask know where to hide? It just so happens.
Yeah. Like, how does he know that Sammy needs to make a phone call to his parents?
Right. Where did he park? If he's following them, so Sammy's position is he must have been following Sammy all day, and he just saw that
the opportunity,
and seized it and shot him. So that could be. But Sammy's the one who took Kevin to the spot where he was killed.
And coming back to the black guy, did anybody else see this black guy?
A lot of people saw the guy in the ski mask, and they could clearly see white guy. All the witnesses, I think there were 10 of them, said white guy, ski mask, gun, except Sammy. He said black guy.
Now, could we make a devil's advocate case that the ski mask was black and that was what he was seeing?
Maybe, sure.
And it was nighttime?
Sure. And like I said, they didn't get him. They suspected him. They questioned him hard, and they gave him a lie detector test. They hypnotized him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Did anything cool come out of that?
He says no. And I interviewed the cops, and they said no. The cops believed that he was fudging, that he wasn't really under. He's told the story that he is a sympathetic, hardworking country musician whose career was cut short by the murder on Music Row. He has made T-shirts. I survived the murder on Music Row, literally. he has done
And
that.
well, and I do that for all my dead friends.
Right.
When I'm in a homicide, I'm like, God, I can at least better make a shirt out of this. I better get something.
Right.
That's. Hey, my best friend was murdered, and all I got was this crummy T-shirt.
He would want
And you
me
can buy it for
to
$19.95.
profit off of his death.
Right.
Right. He would want me to. So
That's who Kevin was.
And that's just a fact. I'm sticking to the facts here. He sells.
He has merch.
He has merch.
He has merch.
He has merch online about his role in the murder on Music Row. What he never says. So I read his book like it was the Bible. Every page. I've read that book forward and back, notations, checking out every story. And some things are not in the book that I thought were really important, like the fact that once Kevin was dead, Sammy's songs did a lot better on the charts in the years after. Sammy, the story that he tells, the sympathetic story he tells radio disc jockeys, even today, is that his career was ruined. But his highest ranking song was the year after Kevin's death. How did that happen? He couldn't play guitar. He left Nashville, went back to Texas, lived with his parents. Sammy Sadler never played a gig in Nashville while in the 80s, while this was going on. But he knew Chuck Dixon. And who was the promoter on the song that became number 2 the year after? Chuck Dixon. Not mentioned in Sammy's book.
So it kind of went into Sammy's favor that Kevin didn't blow the whole thing up.
Correct.
Who was eventually convicted for his murder?
So the guy who hired Kevin Hughes was named Tony D'Antonio, who was best buddies with Chuck Dixon.
Was he also like a mafioso kind of type?
I think he was a wannabe mafioso type. He was really poor. He didn't have a lot of money, and he was a gopher. Like you got to get this done and that done. Tony was the guy to get it done until he started working with Chuck. So Tony was at Cashbox Magazine in the position of chart director. He's the one who hired Kevin Hughes to replace him. He leaves, takes a job working with Chuck. And remember I told you...
Why do I feel like Tony at some point was like, Kevin, you're like a son to me?
Yeah. I think maybe literally they had that conversation. Remember I told you that Kevin believed that he would do a chart and then it would be different in the magazine. His pencil, he would find, was erased. And Tony D'Antonio had a key to the office, and they believed Tony was coming in at night, changing the results of Kevin's exhaustive research and writing in the names of whoever paid the money. Well, Tony D'Antonio was the guy in the ski mask. He's the one who shot him. And, whether or not Sammy was an accidental shooting, a purposeful shooting, Sammy will tell you he believes that he was the intended first victim, that Tony tried to kill him in the car, and Sammy's elbow blocked the bullet that would have killed him. And it was just lucky that he was alive.
Sammy just sounds like a narcissist.
That's you. That's you saying as a listener,
That was Ryan's voice.
Yeah, that's Ryan's.
Whether he killed or not is another story. Like not every narcissist kills. But it sounds like he wanted to be the main character. It's like they were trying to kill me. And then I'm the victim and I'm the survivor and all different things. Okay, so what's the evidence against Tony? Is it ironclad? Do we feel like it? Does he admit to it?
Oh, no. Tony did not. Bill Pridemore was the lead detective on the case. He couldn't solve it. Couldn't put it together. 13 years. And he found out that there was a guy who came forward who was a convicted drug dealer from Georgia, near Lookout Mountain, lived in Flintstone, Georgia, near Lookout Mountain. His name was Steve, and Steve dropped a dime, called the cops and said, I'll help you on this case if you help me on my case. He had sold Tony the gun. Well, he's a drug dealer who did federal time. And do you believe him? Well, he said, you might be able to find evidence in the backyard of the house where I used to live because Tony didn't trust that the gun would work the right way, so he took target practice there 13 years earlier. So the cops from Nashville went to Flintstone, Georgia, had Steve point the direction Tony was shooting, dug up. There were thousands of bullets in this backyard. Thousands, because a lot of people took target practice. It was up against a mountain, and it was out in the middle of nowhere. So he scooped up. He said it was impossible. No bullet analyst would ever check all the bullets that were there.
Yeah.
So he just randomly scooped up 13, and one of them was a perfect match for the bullet that was in Kevin Hughes' head.
Uh-huh.
So that was the evidence that got them to Tony D'Antonio.
So what happened to Tony? Did he go to jail?
He was convicted and died in prison.
And was the primary evidence this bullet and
this magic bullet? Yeah.
Proposed the proposed or the not proposed, but the story told by him, I sold him the gun.
That's funny you should ask. So that's part of the case. And then there was Beth Watts, who was a singer from a little town in Tennessee who came to Nashville to try to make it big. She got hooked up with a skeezy promoter who told her, for $10,000, I'll make you a star, and she paid him, but she was an undercover cop and went in the studio with him as he, tried to bilk her out of all her money. She was using the government's money and nailed him for fraud. And he said, I'll help you in this other case. There's this guy, Chuck Dixon, who ordered the hit on Kevin Hughes. So he said, and I am blanking on his name. Oh, man, how could I do that? But anyway,
I don't know. You said like 1,000 names
in
this interview so far.
There's a lot of names.
You had a lot of name recall.
Yeah, sorry.
We'll give you one pass.
Yeah, I'll probably think of it later. He testified that he had met with Tony and Chuck and said, hey, this is a problem. I've heard that Kevin's going to go to the Tennessean. He's going to tell the media about our scam. Because Beth Watts' song, which she sang intentionally horribly. I've heard the audio of it, and the song was called Hell Froze Over Last Night, I believe, and she sang, and it was terrible. And she said she did it, she's tone deaf and sang it poorly on purpose, and it was number 3 on the charts. And her 10 grand helped that process. And so when the guy got stuck with a fraud charge, he said, I can help you on a murder case. He said he met with Tony and Chuck and told them that Kevin Hughes was blocking attempts to get on the chart. And Chuck said, we'll take care of it. And Tony was in that meeting. And so he testified in the Kevin Hughes case as well. So it was those two things. It was the bullet and the admission that there was a plan behind the scenes.
One thing I found myself wondering is, was Sammy complicit? Like Tony hired him to get him to the right place and make sure Kevin was where he needed to be. And so then if that were true, then there would be, there's two different ways that could go at least. One is he did not know that Kevin was going to get killed. He's just like, hey, get Kevin here, here's $200 or whatever. Yeah, you owe me a favor. Make sure Kevin's here at this time. Okay, well, whatever. Didn't know it was going to go that way.
Why wouldn't he tell? If that was the case,
and
he was just a dupe, Why wouldn't he tell? Why wouldn't he say, geez, they paid me $200 just to take him down the street. I had no idea. He didn't say that.
Uh-huh. Yeah, okay, yeah. Why didn't he tell the truth to everybody? Well, okay. So
because there's something called accessory, Keith.
Okay, tell me about that. Could he get in trouble even if he didn't know?
I mean, I think
he took a payment?
Yeah. It doesn't look good for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, they could probably try and connect him for sure to that, even if he truly didn't know.
When doesn't that like ruin your reputation forever that you like drove your buddy somewhere and was killed?
For sure.
It didn't in this case. I mean, Sammy played 2 weekends ago at Chiefs downtown.
Now, is there a chance that Tony's just so well connected and scary that if he told the truth that Tony's the one who sent him there, he's worried his career's over, he's dead, he's going to be next?
His story is that he's a complete innocent bystander.
Yeah.
That he was followed. That everything was just random. That his call to Kevin, hey, do you want to hang out? He could have called anybody, but it was... I say in the podcast, he must have the worst luck. Mm-hmm. Because it just so happens that the night he wants to hang out with Kevin, there's this multi-layered plot to murder Kevin happening at the same time.
Right.
And the killer could have shot Kevin at Cashbox Magazine, but Kevin walked out with Sammy and he thought, I'm going to follow them for a while and find a better place to shoot him. He could have shot him at Captain D's, which had a dark parking lot too. Cashbox's parking lot, by the way, I went and sat there. It's not there's a different business there now, but it's a dark and a good place for a murder, kind of like this building.
Yeah.
Captain D's, dark, off the beaten track, but he didn't shoot him there. He waited to get to Evergreen Records, where Chuck was a promoter. Tony was very familiar with that. Sammy was familiar. So that's the place that he chose to jump out of the... And then there's the question of whether... So I reenacted the crime over and over and over again.
Like in your mind or like
with
humans?
No. Literally running with the stopwatch, seeing if I could make... So the way the police described it was the only place for this killer to have hid was between two buildings that are still there, across the street from Evergreen Records. So I went up and stood at that spot, and I had a friend walk across the street like Kevin and Sammy did, and Sammy didn't see anybody, so the person stayed hid until Sammy opens the door of the car to get in. And Sammy said the killer had wedged himself between the door and his leg, so he couldn't close the door. That's how close the killer was inside. He didn't shoot through the window. The window was up. No broken glass. He held the gun under the roof of the car and shot and hit Sammy's elbow this way. So I tried to make it from the house to wedged between the car door before my friend could shut the car, and I couldn't do it. Over and over and over again, I tried to do it as fast, cheating, leaving too soon, because if you're running and you're in with a ski mask and a gun, Sammy and Kevin will see you. They'll run. So you have to wait until they have their back turned getting in the car before you can start your run. Can you make it? Because I asked Sammy, did you hesitate? Did you leave the car door open? He said, no, I just sat down, start to close, and there he is on top of us. So what I asked him was, could he have been hiding behind the back tire? Yeah. Then only one person could see him, Sammy. If he's right there and Sammy holds the door, he can get in that way. Sammy said that didn't happen. I asked him about it, but he said it didn't happen. As a person who tried to follow the footsteps the killer must have taken, there's no way to be between the houses and get between his leg and the door unless you were hidden behind that back tire. And then if you're hidden behind the back tire, the only person you're hidden from is Kevin. Because Sammy came around the car and could see you.
So either Sammy was collateral damage, as he claims,
Correct.
or the main character who was tried to be assassinated, and what Kevin was collateral damage, and his story.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, what was the other
Tony?
thought? I wondered if Tony, did Tony try to kill Sammy to shut him up,
Don't know, but
did they shoot him so that he looked like it wasn't him?
Kevin was overkilled. Shot in the back, down on the street. 1, 2 in the back of the head. Sammy, elbow left.
Mm-hmm.
Sammy's positioning in the car after he'd been shot, he leaned over the center console and he's like laying down in the car. So he's leaned across both seats. His head is at the driver's door now, essentially. Mm-hmm. So very easily, that guy could have shot Kevin twice, turned right back around, and just, boom, popped Sammy in the head too. And he didn't.
Sammy's blood is the only blood in the car.
Yep.
Kevin wasn't shot in the car. And the pool of blood, interestingly enough, is on the driver's side edge of the seat. So Sammy's elbow...
So he's got his arm over his head.
Had his arm on Kevin's seat. And I wondered... Listen to this story.
Oh.
I don't even... You know this story? Oh, this story is incredible. So... I stared at that picture of the blood pattern in Kevin's car. How does Sammy's blood get on Kevin's side of the driver's seat? He must have laid across the seat and held, because it's pooled. He must have held his arm there for a long time. Was he hiding? Why? He says he flopped onto the floorboard in his seat, which is impossible. It's only 2 feet wide, 2 foot rectangle. He couldn't possibly have flopped onto the floorboard like is described in his book. He would have had to stretch out across the car. And I wondered, did he try to hold Kevin for the shots to happen? So he knows if he's involved, which we don't know, if he's involved and he knows that Tony is trying to kill Kevin, and the first bullet accidentally hits him, Kevin's still alive and sitting in that driver's seat. Does Sammy reach across and try to hold him in place for Tony to shoot him? Don't know. But Sammy's blood ends up on that side of the car. So, after the case is over, after the Tony's convicted, I do the podcast. It's 30 years later. Detective Bill Pridemore calls me one day and says, I found a bunch of old photos in my garage, crime scene photos, and they're pretty gruesome. Do you want to see them?
Yes. Yeah. The answer is always yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He says, well, meet me at this place for lunch.
Was it the
We'll look at
Shoney's?
these gruesome photos in public.
Yeah. That's literally
Over lunch.
So he was concerned about that very thing, and he had them in a manila folder that he kept on his lap, and I was sitting across from him. So he would look in the folder, and one at a time he would show me the photo just so that other people in the restaurant could not see. And I would look and put it down and then slide it back, and then he would give me the next one. So there's a picture of Kevin lying face down on the pavement that shows the bullet holes in the back of his head. And it's hard to look at, you know. And I say, oh, it's too bad that he's not flipped over, because I would expect that Kevin, if the theory that Sammy struggled with him in the car, he would have a round blood splot on his left thigh above the knee where Kevin's elbow was resting, trying to hold him in place.
Sammy's elbow.
Yeah, Sammy's elbow, trying to hold Kevin in place in the car. Remember, only Sammy bled in the car. So I said, Bill, it's too bad you don't have a picture. Next picture is Kevin flipped over, and there's the exact round blood stain on his thigh. And Pridemore's face went pale, and he's like, we never tested that blood. And I said, I would expect that might be Sammy's blood. How would Sammy's blood get on Kevin's thigh? And he said, I thought it was all Kevin's blood. He said, I'm the one who told the coroner you don't need to
John Mulaney again.
Gross. Yeah. I'm the one who told the coroner you don't have to test the pants. I thought the coroner made a mistake by not checking the blood on the pants. But we'll never know.
Deep stuff.
Yeah.
Do you have an opinion of what happened that night?
Oh, much like Keith, I don't really
go
publicly voice my opinions. Correct. Yeah. I used to.
Because you're a journalist.
Right. I cover a lot of court situations, and on more than one occasion, I've sat through a trial, and prosecutors or defense attorneys come to me and say, so what do you think? Are they guilty or not? And I'm like, first off, you don't want to know my opinion. Second off, I can't tell you even if I could. So,
yeah. Do you guys agree on your interpretation of the events?
Not always.
No, not always.
We look at the same.
I think for season 1 specifically, I think we are pretty in sync with that one. Mm-hmm. For season 2,
I don't know.
Is season 2 finished?
Yeah.
Like is it in the can?
Well, no.
Almost.
We're still in the editing process, but
by the time this episode comes out, it will be completely finished because subscribers can binge all of the episodes.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Immediately. You can if you subscribe to the Tennessean, you can no waiting.
Nice.
Absolutely no
waiting. And for filthy casuals, is it like once per week?
We'll see.
Yeah. You might make it worse, until they subscribe.
A higher power decides that than us.
Yeah, correct. But yeah, I'm a true crime podcast nerd. I listen to one on the way to work, one going home every night. That is my jam, as they say, or used to say. And too many times I hear the podcaster, like the big last episode, here's what I think happened. And I think that's not our responsibility. Our responsibility is to tell the full story as fully as it can be told, wherever it goes. There are reasons Sammy Sadler is completely innocent. Well, like one being he was never charged with anything. Mm-hmm. And he may not. He may have been the most unlucky guy who ever lived. He may not. It's not my position. I'm going to present everything and let people decide. That's my role. And just like James Cavey in season 2, there's a compelling argument he can make that he never set foot in the Rainbow Room. There's also compelling witnesses who convinced a jury that he did. So
this might apply to both cases, but I think it definitely does. You allude to it for season 1 for sure. I know there's like people that don't want to come on the record. Can you tell me about some of that? I mean, obviously, maybe you can't say their name or something, but why? I'm sure some people are just like, I don't want to do that. But like, Is there reason that people have to like still be afraid of some of these people, or they don't want to let the truth out?
I met with a source once in season 1 at a fast food restaurant not near this person's house or work or any place they would go on purpose.
Yeah.
They wanted to be at a out of the way place. And the first thing they said was, you need to be careful because people are still alive up to their eyeballs in this stuff and they will come after you. And that person wouldn't talk on the record. There were facts they gave me off the record that I could then check out in other ways, but I didn't use them. Then there was one day that was completely crazy. It was a Sunday afternoon, and I get a text that says, I've decided I want to talk to you about the case.
Same person or different person?
I don't know.
Oh.
When I received the text, I did not know who it was. Unidentified number. So I thought, I could tell this person who had gone to the lengths of somehow contacting me with an unidentified number wants to talk. So my position was, what does it take? I'll talk. Where you name the terms, and I will talk to you. And they said, who do you think this is? And they said, before you answer, I want you to write down the name of the person you think this is and put it in an envelope. And I'm going to...
What is this?
It's crazy.
I'm going to give you an address, and you bring that envelope to that address now. And the address was 40 miles from my house. So I went downstairs. I told my wife, I got to go.
Did you tell her that what was going on?
Yeah, and I got a little bit of a lecture after that. And my daughter lectured me.
Did you tell her after?
Yeah, I told after.
Yeah, because I'm like, if you told her before, you didn't go.
Yeah, I told her after. And then I remember my daughter saying, come on, boomer, there's tracking devices on your phone that you could set up. Like, you've got to do this. You're in danger. Mm-hmm. So I drive to this place, and I have the envelope in I was wearing a sport coat, and I had it in my sport coat pocket. And it was a bar, and I sat in the bar and just looking around like, who's going to come up to me? And finally a person came up and said, give me the envelope. And I did. And they said, you got it wrong. And there was this long pause, and then you put it in an envelope like I said. That was a burner phone I used, and I'll talk to you.
And so the person who got the envelope was the person?
Was the person, yeah. And sat down across from me and then spilled. Great information, behind the scenes, and like I thought really added context and depth, but would not be named.
One of Keith's favorite games was he would come to me periodically and say, who do you think it was? And then I would give a name, and I was never correct. To this day, I still don't know who it is.
Wow.
Yeah. We take that very seriously in our profession when we agree to give someone that level of anonymity.
Well, they believe their life is in danger.
Right.
And I think there were 4 people who said, my life is in danger, you can't use my name.
And can you share what mysterious bar person, anything that they said without saying who they are?
Like, what information did they give you that you were able to corroborate with other information? Because this is, season 1. I was not involved as deeply involved.
But Kirsten's desk is the first one, as you come into the newsroom to get to my desk, I've got to pass her. And so I would remember being so excited. If I see her car, she's here. This is going to be a good day. I can like spill all the shit that I learned over the weekend or whatever, because I was getting calls day, night, Saturday, Sunday, holidays. It was so exciting and great. No, I don't want to say what the person.
That's fine. You don't have to.
What the person said, because it might, whoever's listening
could zero in.
Could zero in a little bit. Yeah.
It's just nuts to me that it's real enough that somebody feels like they have to go through those lengths.
It feels very dramatic.
Yeah.
And I'm like, because, I mean, to be honest with you, I've never really reported on anything that came with a level of threat, right? Like anything I'm usually reporting on is something that's public information already or something like that. So
she and I are usually the first two in the office in the morning. And when I get there, I look around the parking garage. I look to, like, how far is that doorway away? Where could somebody be? You know, not as much anymore, but literally I
now you know what it's like to be a woman at all times.
Right, there you go. Yeah. I look over my shoulder and think about, where am I vulnerable? Who's in that car? Why is that car there between me and the place I got to go?
This does just sound like my wife.
Well,
carry my key like between my knuckles. Yeah.
But when people are, a guy took 2 bullets in the back of the head over this. And in this case, you know, who knows what we will stir up? Because if James Cavey is telling the truth, then somebody else did it.
Yeah.
Right.
And that person may not appreciate a podcast exposing that fact.
Right. Because it's, it's an open and shut case. Somebody else took the fall for them.
Right.
Right.
They're happy living their life somewhere.
Right. And
they're probably not happy. I'd like to think they're not.
Somebody, if Cavey's telling the truth, then they've probably followed it and know the same people who Skull knew, and, you know, somebody might send them a link to the case, you know, to the podcast. And then what do?
Right.
So when I first started explaining to people this project and the story of Skull, the first couple people I explained it to in the death of Skull 2, the very first thing out of their mouths was, it was a mob hit. And I'm like, it's interesting you should say that, because there may have been some mob connections along Printer's Alley at the time. So it's
yeah, not the type of people you necessarily want to mess with.
No, not particularly. I have never had any mob dealings. I don't know about you, Keith.
Never.
You lived in New Jersey for a while.
I did. Oh, as a matter of fact, I have had some mob.
No.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful newspaper you have here.
How's your mother?
The thing about the Cashbox stuff, or not Cashbox, but maybe, but with people still being afraid of that case, and I want to go on the record, afraid that their lives are in danger, my natural question is, well, why? Do you have any theories on that? Like, why somebody would still think this is a problem? Because as far as I know, this is a thing that happened in 1989. They don't really have those kind of charts anymore because we've moved to like a more objective system. The company Cashbox is dead. Evergreen Records, I don't think that exists anymore, does it?
It does. Still
it
there.
does?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You've got Tony's behind bars.
Chuck's dead.
Dead.
Chuck's dead.
Chuck's dead. Tony's dead too. Died behind bars.
Yeah.
You know, so you've got Sammy out here, but he seems like so public at this point. People dying in connection at the newspaper isn't probably what they want.
Right.
In fact, if the story seems to be that they didn't want this going to the Tennessean, so it is a glorious piece of irony that the Tennessean 30 years later has made an entire report about it, digging into all of it. So Kevin kind of won in the end. So why would anybody still be afraid?
Think about it. On those charts, there were 50 names, not just Sammy Sadler, not just Don Dormany, not just Reba McEntire or Randy Travis. There were they were full of names, full of people who came to Nashville with a dream, paid the $15,000. I'm sorry, make that $20,000, $50,000 for number one. Like those promoters, Chuck Dixon wasn't the only one doing it. And if I exposed corruption and in their circle of friends, they were exposed because, oh, so-and-so did that too. And that's how there were more promoters. You could spit and hit a promoter back in the day, you know? And you know, what I tell people is when Garth Brooks got started, they paid him money. Garth Brooks didn't pay $250,000, get a couple of records and get on Cashbox. He was discovered at Bluebird Cafe and someone said, here's a fee up front to help you make your album or whatever. He got paid. This is the other way around. This is almost like, oh, I'd like to make a record on my birthday and here's a studio where they'll cut vinyl for you. But then they also convince you that you're going to be a star. And if you stick with me and pay me more, you're going to be a bigger star. And there was a lot of them. And all of those names had promoters thank you for helping me get to number one, Joe Smith, and so-and-so, and so-and-so, and so-and-so. And all of the singers on those lists had promoters who were probably, or I don't know, could be just as dirty as Chuck Dixon was.
Right. So in some ways, it's like a directory of possible corruption, Cashbox was.
Right. You know what you're paying for.
And some of those dreamers, because we talked in this story, there's a lot of names that the general public doesn't know. You know what I mean?
Oh,
like
they're
mostly.
Singers. Mostly, yeah.
But if I'm hearing you right, there's also people on that list that everybody knows.
Yeah.
And there's probably some implications that some people who have made a major mark in the world might have, maybe they were well-deserving, but they might have gotten their start by paying for something.
Maybe. Well, I don't want to say their name, but a huge star contacted me after and said thanks for exposing stuff that they had been through. A star that you would all know.
One thing that's underlying all of this, it's almost like the theme of the thing that very much ties to me in my experience is just, maybe it's just a PSA for artists. If you're having to pay to get your dream, like run or at least severely question that.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I think that's the thing is that people come here as dreamers and LA and New York too. People have a dream, they want to be successful, and there is a type of person who preys off of that and sells them their dream. And I think you just have to know that no one can give you your dream.
Yeah.
Like no one, and if they can, they're not going to sell it to you because they're planning on making money and you're going to share in that. I walk this line because as a producer, my job is somebody comes with a dream and I'm here to help them create that dream, but I'm not a label. So I'm not promising them certain results. And I think you just like you as journalists have to have your ethical lines of what you do or don't do. We as producers or on the industry side have to have our ethics of what we do or don't do and how we explain things. So if somebody comes to me and we are going to do a song together, I don't talk to them about results or what this is going to do for them. In fact,
chart positions.
No. In fact, I dissuade that, and I'm just like, look, like we're just going to make our best art. This is very much Rick Rubin's influence on me. I don't know him, but just from hearing him, like we're going to make our best art, and we really can't guarantee that anybody's going to hear it. If you have 4,000 streams on a song, that would be a commercial failure. Yeah. It doesn't mean that your song wasn't good.
Right.
It means only 4,000 people happened to find it. There's really no indictment there if it's good or bad or anything else. But we make no promises that it's going to do well. That's promotion. It's a whole nother thing. What I can promise you is that we're going to work really hard and try to make something really great, and we can do it, with good sound.
So if you then said, for more money, I will make a promise that you will be in Cashbox next week. That's the illegality.
Right.
And when you have a backroom deal already carved out, that the money flows this direction and the result is this, and it doesn't have anything to do with radio plays or record sales or any statistical measure. It only has to do with we paid the money. That's a problem.
Yeah.
And that's what my season 1 exposed.
We live in a world where if you're on the industry side of it, in some ways I am selling somebody a dream. Mm-hmm. And it's really about the ethics of like what you say you can promise. Right. But I think just artists have to be aware.
Literally one of the people I interviewed, this Dawn Dormady that I keep mentioning, came in a Winnebago with her father who had made it big in television repair in his little town in Texas. And he had dreamed about helping his daughter become a star. And so that's part of the formula too. Is the
parents?
They come with the cash, and the promoter is adept at figuring out who they are. Who are the whales? And I can dupe them.
Well, it's interesting that their name wasn't like Chart Scan. It was Cash Box. They couldn't have been more upfront about it.
Exactly. Cash Box is the best name. Right.
Yeah. Well, it's about as much murder as I can take.
Yes, that's valid. Totally valid.
Right. I got a murder podcast to listen to on the way home. So,
man, you're like deep in it.
I'm in it.
I did want to ask you about your tattoo.
Oh,
so be curious, not judgmental. I love the saying. Mm-hmm. I don't know that I've ever like heard that said, but I think it's a great saying. Like, when did you get it? Why did you get it? It feels like so apropos of a journalist to have that. It feels like.
And it's in typewriter font. And so I'm a typewriter guy.
Hold it to the camera.
If you can see that.
Tough angle, yeah.
Do you watch Ted Lasso?
I haven't yet. I know I'm supposed to.
You are.
You are.
Yeah.
Because I'm a huge fan of that show, and the Jason Sudeikis, the lead character who plays Ted Lasso, does this incredible. Am I overstating?
No, it's when people talk about the show, this is one of the moments that everyone comes back to every time.
And he gives a speech about being overlooked when he was a kid and how nobody would ask questions and find out he really thought about things. And he said he was dropping his son off at school, and there was a wall with a mural that quoted Walt Whitman. Now, I don't think Walt Whitman ever said this, but in the show, that's what he quoted. Be curious, not judgmental. Because if you would have been curious, you would have found out that Ted Lasso was an expert dart player, and you would have never bet him that he couldn't beat you at darts. And there's a famous dart scene where he wins a bet where you think he can't possibly win. And so I've thought about that, and it was for my son's birthday, and he and I, my oldest son, loved that show, watched it together, and he said, "Dad, let's get matching tattoos because what I've been concerned about is tattoos seem like fleeting in the moment and then permanent and then don't make sense. Yeah. This will always be right." And so that's why I thought, I'm going to get that.
Was this your first?
Yeah. Be curious, not judgmental.
Yeah. It's so stereotypical first tattoo, let me just say. Because everyone always wants to do something, or they wait forever until they're like, this is so much meaning to me. I want this to be on my body forever. And then you get to be like me, who's like, okay, once you get the first one, you get the bug. And you're like, you know what? That little giraffe is cute. Let me put that on my body. You know, exactly. I don't have a giraffe tattoo, but I do. Yeah.
Well, and you've apparently put them where not everybody sees them at work, or whatever, you can cover them up.
I also have typewriter font. I have a little J on my wrist. That's for my husband because he has a K on his ring finger. He is a chef, and so he's in hot environments a lot, and so he can't wear his ring because it gets nasty and gross. Yeah. So he got a little K tattooed. So I have a little J right there in typewriter font. And then I have our wedding date on my collarbone. And then my most recent one is on the back left. Is this my left? Yes. My back left arm, which is a twin tattoo with one of my best friends who I met at my first newspaper job. And it's a combination of our favorite flowers wrapped in a newspaper. Then my first tattoo is on my ribs. I went hardcore.
And it's a giraffe.
It's not a giraffe. It's a
That's coming.
It's a camera with a quill coming out of it that one of my grad school cohorts drew for me. So,
Oh, that's cool.
yeah.
I honestly think getting tattoos helped me to get married, and I'll explain why. So, never before getting a tattoo had I ever done anything that made a completely permanent
A commitment.
Look at that. Look
For my
at
whole
what
life.
you've done there.
And I vacillated for many years, and tattoo or no tattoo.
It's a metaphor.
It is. And once I got the one tattoo, I went, oh, this isn't so bad. And I got the bug and started doing other little things. I got this small one and then got bigger and whatever. And then you hit a point where you're like, I'm going to get.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can show it.
Yeah.
The What's the Story Morning Glory album cover on my arm.
Hell
Wow.
yeah. Hell yeah.
Look at that. It's right there.
It sure is.
Yeah.
So the cool thing about this too, this is Berwick Street in Soho in London. And I went and got my tattoo here.
Oh.
Oh, nice.
Found a tattoo shop on the street. So I got the tattoo there
You're a
of the
fan.
street. And then I bought this vinyl like basically there.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So
Great story.
thank you.
These tattoos better have stories.
Yeah. Well, but then you also get to the point where you're like, I mean, okay, all mine do kind of have a story.
Yeah.
Well, sure. Like,
But this one is random. The story is it was my buddy's birthday party when we wanted to get tattoos, and I thought it looked cool.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know?
You get to a point where you're just like, well, let's see what flash this artist has. That looks kind of rad. Let me put that on me.
Exactly.
But it's funny you mentioned that tattoos helped you get married because that also is my situation.
Really?
Yeah. So my husband and I, we knew each other in college. We were both in journalism, and then we kind of went our separate ways after graduating. And he left the industry and went back to culinary school and was on a break from the club that he was working in St. Louis, and was down in Alabama where I lived at the time. And I saw on social media that he was in Alabama, and I was like, oh my God, I was in Montgomery and he was in Birmingham. I was like, I haven't seen you in forever. If you have time, I'd love to see you. And he's like, oh, I have time right now. Let me come on down. So he comes down, and I remember him from college, and he shows up and he's like, all tatted up his arms. And I'm like, whoa, now what's going on here? And so
it's a bad boy.
And he went big for his first one, goes all the way from the top of his shoulder down to his wrist.
Wow.
And he was like, yeah, like in the armpit and everything.
Full
and
send,
like,
bro.
Yeah, basically.
He could have been a prisoner.
Well, so it's funny you mentioned that. So we start talking and chatting,
I'm
and
a dad.
then it kind of
Season 3.
we kind of fade away. And then I saw a meme that was really funny, and it was like, if you saw a guy with full of tattoos, it used to mean he did hard time in prison. Now it means he's cooking you a perfect filet mignon. And I sent it to him. I was like, oh my God, this reminds me of you. Yeah. And that kicked off our conversations.
Why isn't that a tattoo? You could have those words on your arm.
I'm not going to get that tattooed on me, but that was the thing that sparked our dating.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I think there's something about making a permanent commitment.
Yeah. It's great.
I've gotten a lot of attention, though. People comment on it. It's usually people who haven't seen Ted Lasso because they think I'm brilliant. And they go, gosh, you thought of that. That's incredible.
Do you say thank you?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
You might as well put a dash under there, Keith Sharon.
Right.
So when are we going to get matching Murder and Music Row tattoos?
Ooh, that's a good idea.
Guys, let's go tonight.
Don't tempt me with a good time, Keith.
At 1 million downloads. How's that? At
that
1 million.
Sounds good. That sounds
Yeah. So the new season is out now. People can get it, I'm assuming, everywhere, right?
All
anywhere
streaming.
You can get podcasts.
But the best place to get it is the Tennessean, where you can subscribe and listen to the whole thing now.
You can binge it. For all you binge listeners out there, I'm one of them.
Me too.
Yeah.
I am disappointed if it's episode 1 and then you got to wait.
Well, I'd encourage everybody to get it. I know we went into a lot of details about the case, especially with the first one. So you might feel like you know what this is.
You don't, I promise you.
Yes. I think that's...
Oh, we have not...
There's so much
intentionally not told you what we've got.
Right. There's so much good content. Ugh.
And the way that you all tell the story, there's so much depth. In a lot of ways, to me, it's like a history of the 20th century and Nashville. And it's beyond, like you said, it's not just about the case. It's about the historical place and people and all the things. And I feel like you can't listen to an episode of Murder on Music Row without learning something new that you had no idea existed. So that's my endorsement to go check it out.
Yeah.
And thank you guys both so much for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
It was great. Love the building.
Thank you. This is the part where I'm
Oh no! You get it on camera.